What up, random rockers? I know I'm a little late, and I wanted to do this as a discussion, but unfortunately, things happened the day I decided to go see this with what apparently random Rita. We've decided been a lot nicer if you some of you guys said something in the comments, uh, but whatever. To each his own on that. Anyway, Wonder Woman, sponsored by Dr. Pepper. I love it. That's my purpose for this shirt and this review. At least this one, anyway. And back to Rita. She wasn't able to make this. However, she wanted to let you guys know. So, given that I figured I wanted her involved because it'd been better if we had a female perspective, and she was said that this was great, and she was happy to finally see, or at least for her, since I have seen, and those movies particularly were atrocious. So, babe, if you are watching this one, please don't see them. Don't see those. Or the 81 Supergirl. That was just an atrocious attempt at doing what DCU is doing here. And she wants to let you know her thoughts is that it is great, and that she was just happy to see a finally see a female-led superhero type movie, since she's usually used to the men and stuff like that. And yes, and it's worthwhile treat, especially given that it is a great movie itself. And you know what? I originally was just going to tell you that it's good, and I've seen it Sunday, and today is technically Wednesday, early morning. Should be sleeping now, but I wanted to get this out of the way so that I can get this, I guess uploaded for you guys then, and like I had promised in this week, because this would be the best time for me to do it. But aside from that, guys, I'm going to tell you right now. She's not. Yeah, it is great. In fact, I'd go as far as to say I will, before I get to how far I would say that this would be, and what comparisons I'm going to say. The comparisons I will say is that this is what we should have gotten out of Captain America First Avenger. If we gotten this specifically out of Captain America First Avenger, on top of what we wound up getting with Winter Soldier, and even Civil War, that entire complete trilogy would be the best thing since the Dark Knight trilogy. In fact, I would even go as far as to say that this movie is the best DC-based movie since the last two, since anything involving Nolan's trilogy. I'm not stuttering with that. I don't even know, I might as well have kind of been stuttering already, but no, I'm not kidding. So, this Gal Gadot, or Gadot, even more ironic given that there's so many flavors of how you can say it, given the 23 flavors, and then add extra flavors of how many times you can figure out how to pronounce her name. Yeah, so it matched up pretty good, and with that regard, and I had some other joke, but I can't remember on that. Oh well, regardless of that, yeah, I'm gonna just take my hat off, and in presence of possibly a great woman character, she embodied this character. or at least you were on this journey of with her into this. You were already on board with her, how they set her up in Themyscira, and then you're on board with her when she leaves there and goes into London, and then gets involved all throughout World War I, which is basically what you're setting up for this, and mostly so she can fight Ares and stop this war from happening, to stop World War I, even though there's a lot more in somewhat depth to it, but it's technically kind of linear, but it's done in a way where they do certain subtle little things that keep you engaged in this movie and make it far less of a predictable kind of movie. You don't feel like it's predictable. You're on a ride, and the biggest thing is Patty Jenkins relied on Donner's Superman. Richard, as in Richard Donner's Superman, for this movie. And in that regard, it shows in and of itself. And it's probably one of the best in terms of tonally of this nature. Since that Superman, has there ever been have they ever been able to truly capture that kind of vibe that a DC movie should have, that allows it to distinct itself away from what Marvel's been doing, especially with the MCU? Sure, there are some beats that the Captain America First Avenger beats are somewhat there, given, except, instead of World War II, it's World War I, which you don't see a whole lot of in this movie. They don't stay away from some of the darker tones of war, but at least it's a lot more colorful in their palettes. At least in terms of it's less darker in color, in tonal color, or at least its own timbre, I guess you should say, which is tone color. Anyway, to that of what we've gotten out of these past DCEU movies, and giving us something that's, at least for the most part, comes off a little brighter, or at least where they need it to be. Patty Jenkins does well. She proves she knows the source material when she directed this thing. They're flawed, but like the MCU movies, to a degree, there's some flaws, but they are tolerable enough that they don't make and hinder the movie like the past few DCU films have done, even to maybe the extent of the Ultimate Cut itself. Even I enjoyed Suicide Squad, but even I will say that it is somewhat flawed and somewhat harder, I guess, to defend. Even Batman v Superman, at least if you have with the Ultimate Cut edition, you have something to go off of. In fact, going into that movie, after you just, in fact, Batman BVS becomes an even better movie because of Wonder Woman. I honestly believe it does. And this movie has only small, subtle things that tie it somewhat in with what has been happening throughout the DCU, but it doesn't really do much. But those little moments are more in the present day stuff. After that, it's all about a character study and origin for Wonder Woman, but an origin story that's told very well. That's told in a sense of inspiration, that feeling that's kind of, that chance to somewhat escape from all this cynical world and just immerse yourself into this movie. Immerse yourself into this character and what characters that are surrounding her, or at least in particular, Steve Trevor, played by Chris Pine. And Chris Pine knows how to pull off some good comedic cues, I tell you that. Or at least I'm not dying on the floor laughing, but every time he has something to say, it works well. Something to say, I have a chance of just laughing with it. Or at least the way he at least subtly times himself. Even if he's not necessarily trying to technically pull off a joke or be funny, I'm still kind of snickering at this. Nice. I'm going, nice. At least that, is enough should give you at least a thumbs up, if not the horns all the way, from that performance of his. And of course, he's proven he can be a good actor as of Hell or High Water, even though I have yet to see that. But I've heard some good stuff. So, and I'll believe it even more when I see it. as well. I've, even from this movie as well. And again, just and overall, this movie just it definitely, I gotta say, it rocks, man. And this movie, in fact, to the point where this movie, I honestly think is very well timed. Especially given a couple weeks ago, we've already got or at least a month ago, Logan having been released on Blu-ray or on DVD, all this stuff, and just long before this one. So people probably now watching that and going through something that intense, going into this movie, it is perfectly, for the most part, perfectly the opposite answer of what we needed from what you need after seeing a movie like Logan, of that intense nature and that kind of tearjerker kind of thing, of like, or at least a sort of make you feel sad kind of thing. This movie could easily just lift up those spirits from you and inspire you to want to do something good with your life, you know? In fact, or if not further on top of just furthering inspiring you to, whether it's just finally they did something right. It's a Wonder Woman film we've never knew we wanted, and yet at the same time never knew we even needed. And we got that. Not just everything was right on the line for both the director, for Gal Gadot. They had something to prove. Warner Brothers and DC with this for this entire DCEU thing had something to prove. Needed something to prove to at least show us that or give us a sense of hope, not only in our own lives, but even in their, or well, more so I should say, not just in this entire universe they've been building up on, but also in the process, our own lives themselves is what I really was trying to say. I apologize, I screwed that up, but whatever. You get the idea. And for that, I'm willing to say that this is definitely going to be one of the films of the year. Definitely will somehow it will wind up making my top 3. I almost hate to have to say good luck to good luck Star Wars Last Jedi. Uh, trying to top this shit. Holy fuck. And definitely good luck for Justice League. Because if they pull out another one like they did with Wonder Woman, they have a shot. They have a shot at finally truly being able to compete against. In fact, this is the movie we should have got out of Man of Steel. Well, if Man of Steel was more like this, it would be a whole other ballgame. Though what we did get out of it, I was okay with. I was fine with. I was able to live with it. It was a different, darker take, but it didn't completely alienate what made up the character, I thought. But I felt like it did for some people, but not for me. And I enjoyed Man of Steel for what it was. And I wanted to enjoy Batman v Superman more, but I couldn't, from what I got out of the theatrical release, from what I seen. And whatever. But I feel like I probably would have enjoyed the Ultimate Cut better, because at least it would have delved more into Superman as a character, and it being more his film as opposed to Batman, and just being a side character instead. And that's what I really would have liked to have gone off of with that film. And Wonder Woman, what little we got, but she was a nice little surprise in that film, and we got to see more of what we got out of that we liked from her in that, but something even better, even far greater. And this is something that will definitely change everyone involved in this, and everyone who's watched this movie itself. It's a game changer. It's not, I wouldn't say it's that much of a necessary game changer. It can be a life changer in the feeling, or at least it definitely, you'll want to come back to this movie. It's, and immerse yourself in it. You were engaged in this movie almost as much as you could say with Logan. I mean, I can't say that I was at first, but through my thoughts and through even some spoilers I guess I've read after I had seen it, and thinking about it from what I have seen, and yes, Yes, to some degree, except for one little thing, and that's where the spoilers are going to have to come into play. And three, two, one. All right, guys, this is a portion of it, of those spoilers, and I enjoy Wright was was her role as the one that was teaching as the sister to the queen, as well as her pretty well her Diana's aunt or aunt, I should say. Yeah, pronounce it right. I mean, that whole beach scene was interesting. Sure, they kind of did a little too much to the Zack Snyder slow mo shots here and there, but I didn't care. But it was like done taste. But even with the slow mo shots, they were still somewhat done. The action scenes were done tastefully in this movie. I forgot to mention that on the non spoiler, but yeah, they were all done tastefully, and it was more character driven, and that scene was nice. Um, Definitely a nice little introduction with that, her training with them, just the way they built up this world of Themyscira and the Amazons was nice, and for finally getting into that fish out of water situation and her kind of that little almost innocent, somewhat childlike innocence, but not like immature necessarily. She's has the knowledge, she's more aware, and she's just it's just a sense of curiosity, innocence in the sense of curiosity of things. Even the nice little ice cream little joke that I found funny, and I knew that women are gonna love this movie. In fact, I would even go as far as to say that the everyone who bitched about how Ghostbusters made men feel like shit, as a man, you will not feel like shit coming into this movie. There's an equal. This is the idea. I think this honestly kind of portrays the idea of what equality should be between between both sexes. Specifically, even though I feel like that somehow has gone to shit because of everything since the transgender bull crap that just baffles me. And of course, I'm just as old timey as what's going on here. In fact, it is a period piece given World War One, but in the sense of some of its filmmaking, subtle little filmmaking styles in the movie, that's really cool. Especially with how you don't see it like it's even in the sense where you kind of to tell they kind of did it at some point in the movie, but they didn't end up beginning with the boat scene. No, no, no. In fact, I love the fact that Chris Pine actually, he's done some bad shit, but he's a good dude, and especially the fact that he's like has some sort of moral standards in just, or at least that old school kind of moral standards of just not with the whole. As a Catholic, I enjoy this myself, and I know some far more devout people who are Catholic are going to enjoy this movie too. I am so sorry I didn't mention this in the non spoiler, and I'm afraid of, and I'm pissed at all you guys that have probably seen the movie at this point that have didn't get to hear me say that earlier. So, but either way, overall, again, that was Pine's roles. Their back and forth, their chemistry is what made this film great. It was more platonic than actual really romantic necessarily. And the film basically talks about how, in a way, it does the Love Conquers All, but not in such an anime-ish way. Or at least not in the Shonen Jump kind of ways, which, whether it be like your Dragon Ball Z's or your Naruto's or whatever, the whole power of friendship kind of baloney that just comes off a bit too forced and cheesy. That's not what happens in this movie. It's subtle, or at least it comes off subtle and somewhat natural in its, especially in helping with the story progression, or at least in helping Wonder Woman progress as a character, especially when you get that scene at the airport, or at least scene at the airport around the end when especially in the effective of how when she finally fights Ares, which doesn't start off at first, which that first fight was underwhelming, and that's why I enjoyed the fact that they finally twisted to where we did get Ares and how he comes off almost more spooky in the sense when you finally see who it actually is in that twist. And I was on board, but I feel like to a small degree, some people aren't going to be on board with it in the same sense as some people are with the whole Mandarin twist in Iron Man 3. But I was, so I guess with that too. Though the difference is, I can tell the way they at least executed and how they handled themselves with that in areas is far superior than Iron Man 3's. And the way they handle all this storytelling, they had a good story on them. They hit every note and every beat they needed to, and you're just invested in her developing herself as a character, or at least her finally coming to terms with humanity itself and the world of men itself. They definitely did great with giving you the idea story in terms of the philosophy of between the relationships of Zeus, for what brief you get with the relationships of Zeus and them, and how it affected that of humanity, or at least the men, and that of women itself. And you definitely feel an equal level of terms with this, or at least she proves herself, and kind of they eventually earn a sense of good trust that they're finally on equal ground, and that's kind of what that sort of, though not shown, sex sort of scene that leads into possibly what could have possibly been a sex scene but wasn't, which was the fact they did kind of cut that away from all that, it's very old school, very something you'd expect from the 40s. From a movie that would have come out at that same exact time of that decade frame in which World War I was happening. And they at least they don't cut away from the fact that of how brutal war can be. But it's when it comes to some of those scenes, and even her naivety and just how she's not her, at least her innocence and her curiosity, and like how it just baffles her in such a intense situation, even to the point where I'd understand why when it comes to something like that. That stuff can be a little on the intense side a little bit. Don't worry, the movie didn't make me yawn. I'm just tired from everything else, dude. Forgive me for that, ladies and gentlemen, other fellow random wreckers, and I enjoyed this. I still feel like this movie, once again, watch Logan first, then watch this. It's definitely kind of gives. I love how it's become that polar opposite to that. Or at least the good answer we needed in terms of that feel good kind of vibe of epicness that that Logan didn't exactly give us, but that was never Logan's intention anyway as a movie, because that was just intense as fuck and it was awesome. And I still, thus far, that's still but the film of the year for me. But I could, this has definitely somehow become a closer contender than I thought it would be. And in fact, I glad they gave me a movie that definitely would somehow completely blow any of the Guardians films out of the water for me. And I'm also looking forward to seeing looking forward to see what they do with Justice League, how they're going to go with that. You could tell the way she's through this experience, she's learned a little more involving humanity and where she stands and what she fights for, what she believes in. And especially her idea, and that sort of, she's an icon, she's more than just, some superhero or whatever. Like, there's a presence to what the character of Wonder Woman is, and they did it right. They gave justice to this character. Even if we didn't get enough out of what we wanted out of a character like Ares, especially in the airport scene. But the best part that really nails that home is the trench scene in the middle of the movie. That was somewhat shown in the theater. But in the trailers, but never fully spoiled for you. When you see this, or at least what leads to this moment, and the scene with the arm the amnesty, and what she had to say was just on the nose. Like you're not against anything she says about this. It's like, cause she is she's an Amazon, and of course they also did reveal, in case you didn't know the lore of Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is technically, like Hercules himself, a demigod, especially in terms of strengths, but in terms of strength in a sense that is also similar with Superman's. And she's just that power, which she's that powerful. They did hint that, which I didn't barely notice, that she could potentially, because in the comics she can fly, but they never show that in Batman v Superman, and they kind of hinted possibly that she might have in this one, but maybe she just was kind of, I don't know what that one, but, and that's kind of where some of her own powers have come from, and you can tell that where Steve Trevor doesn't fully believe in what she's saying. It just comes off as just completely crazy. But I love the fact that that's not always just how they handle that. Him eventually learning, especially from what happened in the trench scenes, and once they go into the village, all that was just fucking baller. And the score it kicks, that score that you get, that Zeppelin inspired, is fucking not wasted in this movie. When you get it, you're fucking engaged. It helps just in the same levels that you would get out of a John Williams score, which I know John Williams, it did not get involved in this score, but I'm trying to think who did this one. I think it was maybe James Horner. I'm not sure, but it's awesome. It's definitely a good, that particular part of the score specifically is, especially used in the credit scene, and those two of those intense scenes, even that helped enhance and make even the weaker fight scene that would, prior to the Zeus twist, which wound up being one of the guys, I forgot the name of that character, but basically the actor who wound up playing in like Prisoner of Azkaban, that was the werewolf dude. Yeah, still with the mustache, which may throw off some people, but it didn't throw me off, because the character of, I was invested somewhat in his character enough that when that reveal happened, it kind of was like, nice, very nice. And I know I'm repeating myself at this point, but again, overall, I've enjoyed this film. I'd say it rocks all the way. It's going to possibly make my number 3 or number 2 for sure. Logan still kind of holds at number 1 a little bit, but by the end of the year, we'll see which film is truly more superior of those two, or if there is another film that could possibly potentially top that. And unfortunately, one of those films I would like that to be coming out in a couple weeks may not do that, because we've been spoiled to death with these trailers. Probably because Sony just doesn't know when to stop just fucking showing a bunch of shit. Mostly Sony. So, yeah. But looking forward to that, and hopefully get a chance to review that as well. Given my current busy schedule, the band is still happening. If you check out my personal Facebook page, some of y'all, yeah, it's coming along. Though we changed up a little bit, and it sounds a little different from what you may have heard from that. Music. I mean, I've got that going on, so I've got much to learn myself, as well as the rest of that members of that band. And still, between that, Random Rita herself, and all that type of thing. It was just, yeah, it's a lot to take in, and a lot of things I want to catch up on, and a lot of movies, a lot of music. I do what I can. I wanted to really cram up a little and bring you even more than what I did last year, but now things in life happen, and you're not able to really do that or invest your time in that in the same way you can. So I will do what little I can, even if I can't churn out content like I used to. I will just bear with me. I will give you what I can and make time for, or at least what I can afford to make time for, given I am part-time and I don't really have, and I'm taking out of my pocket trying to do this for you guys to a degree. And this is really, really long and probably will not get edited like usual. But I wanted to let you guys know everything that's been going on. Why it's been a lackluster with this channel lately. Wanted you to know what my thoughts were with Wonder Woman, and eventually my random Rita's thoughts. And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to do with this. And now I want to know what your thoughts are. So, what did you think of this movie? Comment below, let me know. Like this, rock that like button. Rock that like button with thrust if you must. And as always, guys, just keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. And take care, y'all, and and until the next video. See Wonder Woman. You will not regret it.